Inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
James, I wanted to bring you on the show today because I feel like you're just a regular guy.
Definitely just a regular guy, not a spreadsheet guru, not even all that analytical, and I'm not even that handy.
You were buying rentals and building out your rental portfolio, and then something changed. What happened?
Here in the North Texas market, prices were escalating, and I realized I couldn't continue to add to my portfolio here in North Texas, so I started casting the net a lot wider.
On the show today, we're going to figure out how James continued to build his rental portfolio after he was priced out of his local market. Joining us on the show today is James Ledbetter. We'll take a really quick break. We'll come right back and we'll talk to James. The first step in buying a rental property is to get pre-qualified. And I would suggest you work with a lender that specializes in working with investors, because the last thing you want to have happen is to get to closing and find out the money's not there and you can't close. The lender that I recommend is Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. She's a nationwide lender and she'll pre-qualify you for free if you mention Rental Income Podcast. Find out more today. Contact Chaley at ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com. NMLS 42056. James, why don't we start things off talking about your rental portfolio? What does your portfolio look like?
Sure. Currently, Dan, I have 6 properties here in the North Texas area, 2 in San Antonio, and 2 in the Waco, Texas area, and 1 commercial property in Central Texas.
So what would you say is your long-term goal? Like, why are you buying rental properties?
I'm really focused on trying to build passive income streams. I know that these days, traditional ways to build wealth may not be there anymore, and I've always heard that real estate can certainly be a great vehicle for doing so.
I know you said at the beginning that you're not a spreadsheet guru, but I'm sure you've got some kind of criteria when you're looking to buy a rental. What are you looking for?
Well, without question, to have it appeal to most renters in the markets that I'm focused in, it would have to be a minimum of 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, close proximity to schools, to shopping areas, and by doing that, I figured that my candidate pool, potential tenant and candidate pool, would be wider.
As you've been building out your portfolio, is your strategy to save up a down payment, to save 20%, and whenever you have the money, that's when you're buying another rental?
Yeah, most definitely, Dan. Because my family was able to live well within its means, as I was able to save up 20% down, then I knew I could start actively looking on the MLS for a potential purchase.
Awesome. Okay, so you're looking for MLS deals, putting 20% down. Are you looking for houses that you're going to do a full rehab to? Or are you looking at for houses that are pretty much ready to go?
It would be the latter. Mainly houses that just needed a little TLC. So definitely did not want to purchase a house that was in a lot of disrepair, but simply a house that could be cleaned up and with just a minimal amount of investment in that property, it would be rent ready.
You know, I love it. It's a basic strategy. You're looking on the MLS, you're finding deals, you're going in there, maybe doing a little bit of freshening the place up, and then you're renting it out. It's really kind of like real estate 101, what you're doing.
It truly is, Dan, a simple model, and I didn't want to make it overly complicated. um, and certainly in making offers on properties, the wise adage is to not get emotionally tied to a property. Mm-hmm. So it was about making offers and sticking to your guns and not buying outside of your comfort level. And if you're patient enough, then sooner or later a property would fall into your lap and you'd get an acceptance by the seller.
All right, so let's talk about why you had to expand into other markets. So you bought, did you say it was 5 or 6 properties near your house, and then the market changed, prices started going up, and you really couldn't get the same kind of deals that you were getting before?
Yeah, up here in the North Texas area, the housing market was appreciating every year. And so I saw that slow but definite increase in the listing prices of homes. And I realized, hey, a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house that I could historically pay, maybe $145,000 for, was now for sale for maybe $175,000. So yeah. I realized as much as I would desire to keep buying houses in my backyard, as they say, I might need to get comfortable with casting that net wider and looking outside of my local market.
Yeah, I got to hand it to you because I feel like a lot of people get stuck where they're buying rentals. They kind of find a price point that works for them. And then, in a lot of the country over the last 10 years, the prices have appreciated and all of a sudden you can't get the same deals you were getting. And I think a lot of people just stop buying then. Did you ever consider just not buying anymore? Or did you know that you really needed to buy more properties and it just wasn't going to happen near your house?
Well, and I think for me, it was, coming to the realization that if I did not cast that net wider, I couldn't keep this momentum going, and I would, I couldn't continue to add to my portfolio, which I certainly wanted to do. And so I was really at that crossroads where I had to ask myself this question: hey, if I purchased a property several hours away, is there a way for me to do that? Is there a way for me to landlord and manage a property when I'm not local anymore? And so it presented some challenges, no doubt about it, but I didn't want my fear to just paralyze me and keep me from striving after that larger goal, which was to keep this momentum going and keep growing my portfolio.
The area that you ended up buying in is about 5 hours away. That's a pretty big distance. Did you kind of step into other areas? Like as you were looking around, did you look maybe 45 minutes away or an hour away? Or did you go right for looking at properties that were that distance away?
I think I incrementally started, and thanks to the internet and thanks to all the incredible search tools that are now at our disposal, I started broadening my scope. So I saw that houses in San Antonio were still within my comfortable buying range, and I realized, hey, I can pursue this, and I'll work through these challenges of not buying in my local backyard, so to speak.
So did you know San Antonio? Like, were you familiar with the neighborhoods, or did you do all your research just looking at properties online?
It was really just looking at properties online and, using tools just like Google Maps to virtually drive through a neighborhood and look at the, look at the, look at where these houses were in relationship to shopping areas, to look at those schools, and I also called a few realtors, and I would ask them point blank, hey, is this part of town considered family friendly? Is it considered, are these neighborhoods considered safe, or are they high crime areas? And if I kept getting favorable feedback, I felt like if I found a property in these general areas, that it was a safe bet. Wow. And that there wouldn't be too many surprises.
Right. As soon as you narrowed down to some neighborhoods that you liked or some areas that you liked, did you go visit, or were you ready to buy without physically going there?
I could quickly determine who the listing agent was. I could call them and say, hey, is your house for sale? Is it still on the market? I could ask them for any additional pictures or insight that they could share with me. And I would let them know, hey, I'm a part-time investor out of town. I'm in the Dallas area. I'm possibly interested in buying a rental house there in the San Antonio area. And I would just have that icebreaker conversation with the listing agent just to, set that expectation and see if they'd be willing to, help me make an offer on their listing, and or see if they'd be willing to work with me as a buying agent.
I love living in 2020. I feel like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, this would have been impossible to do what you've done. But with the internet, you really can learn so much. Like, we have access to such information that people in the past just didn't have access to.
It is, you are so right, Dan. It is a remarkable tool and we've got so much information at our fingertips, and it allows you to take a lot of the guesswork out of buying a house, several hours away. Yeah. And I quickly gained the confidence knowing that, hey, I will not have to jump in my truck and make several trips to the San Antonio area to look at houses. It could all be done remotely through the use of just our computers. And I realized because of the internet, I can do this, that it wouldn't take time away from my day job. It wouldn't take me away from my family. I could simply use this, spare time that I had in the evenings to make those phone calls, to build those relationships with realtors, and to start making offers on properties.
Now, buying a property from out of town is one thing, and you've obviously shown that this can be done, and everything has worked out perfectly, right, with the rentals that you've bought in San Antonio.
Today, I've managed to hold on to these properties. I was able to find decent tenants, and I'm able to cash flow. So, largely the experiment has been successful. And, I was able to find properties that I never set foot in. I was able to build, rapport with local realtors, and I was able to interview those tenants, knowing that I would never have that face-to-face conversation with them.
Yeah.
But through the use of all these tools, video chats is possible, and that they could get comfortable knowing that I'm a real person, that this isn't a scam, that I'm, that they're not going to, I was able to get them past their nervousness, knowing that they would not be shaking my hand impossible, and that they would be executing a lease, externally.
I think that is the most amazing part of this whole thing is that you are managing these properties remotely. So you don't have a local property manager. You're doing everything yourself from 5 hours away.
Yes. Everything myself. The rent checks, because I'm not relying on a management company. I tell my tenants, hey, you'll be paying me directly. We can do that through whatever means is that is most convenient for you, by using one of the, Google Pay or Zelle or any other payment method. And or if they feel comfortable putting, if they don't have a bank account or something like that, they can simply drive to my bank and deposit that money directly into my account. So it was all about having several conversations about how they'll make payment each and every month, how repairs will be handled, and letting them know, hey, you don't have to call a management company. You'll call me if the AC breaks down. You'll call me if there's a plumbing issue, and I'll try to be Johnny on the spot and be responsive in a timely fashion if and when things break and fail, and you need your landlord to be engaged.
When something does break, something does go wrong, how are you finding local contractors to go over and fix whatever the issue is?
Dan, I try to use a number of resources. I'm a big fan of Craigslist. I'm a big fan of Yelp. And so, finding contractors is never difficult. It's just, can you find someone that can work with any budget constraints you have? So typically, I'm dealing with, rather than a big nationwide repair company, whether it's a plumber or electrician, I'm having more success with the smaller mom and pop type handyman services and things like that. And I love it when they say, hey, James, we do basic plumbing, basic electrical, basic carpentry. We do it all. So if you can find somebody that's got a lot of good skills, and they have a skill set, they can do a lot of different things. That's just less calls you need to make.
Have you ever been to the properties? Like, has there ever been a reason to go there?
One of my San Antonio properties I have visited in person, and it was only because for two reasons. I happened to be down in the area, and I had a tenant that wasn't paying on time, habitually was paying rent late. And I felt like, okay, because I'm in the area for another purpose, it may behoove me to go by there and to have that face-to-face engagement to see if we can come to an arrangement where they get to remain in the house. Unfortunately, I went down there, had that face-to-face engagement, but in due time, I realized I needed them to vacate the house because it wasn't going to be a blessing for them, and I've figured they were going to have to continually to pay their rent well after its due date.
Yeah, I guess some tenants can turn things around, but for a lot of them, it's a lot of times just better to move on and part as friends. So is there anything that you need to be there in person for? It sounds like the repairs, you got that squared away with, how about showings? How do you do showings?
You have to think very creatively. What has worked for me, Dan, is if I have a property empty, and I think that's key. If a property, if you have a existing tenant that is moving out, I think it's best to wait for them to exit the property rather than try to do showings while you have a tenant in the space. So once you have a empty property, for me, it's been just a matter of getting a lockbox on the front door, and you can certainly utilize a handyman or a local realtor to do that. A lot of times they'll do that small favor for you if asked. Once you get a lockbox on the property and you've got it, empty, if the space is empty and it's basically move-in ready, then once you've got that listed in a search engine like Zillow, you can start showings. You can simply give that lockbox code to potential tenants, let them come by, let them open the house up for themselves, and you kindly ask them to text you when they arrive, text you when they leave. And so you can kind of keep up with the coming and going of potential tenants that way. But you don't need to engage a management company, and you don't need to have these potential tenants escorted by a realtor.
That's really incredible. So it sounds like your experiment has worked out, and things are working out great. Do you see yourself buying more properties in areas that are far away from where you live?
I do, and it's been an experiment. But now that I know that I know how to do this, I've got a simple, uncomplicated method for doing this. Short of prices driving me out of the market, I should be able to, continue to incrementally add to my portfolio.
I love it. Well, if anybody wants to reach out to James, I've got his contact information on the website. You can find it at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 287. I'd like to thank today's sponsor for making this episode possible. It's Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. If James inspired you and you're ready to buy a rental, whether it's your first rental or you want to add to your portfolio, the lender that I recommend is Chaley Ridge. She's a nationwide lender, and she specializes in helping investors buy rental properties. She has a ton of different loan programs, and she can find something that'll work for you in your situation. If you want to find out more or set up a time to talk to Chaley personally, just go to ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com. If you mention Rental Income Podcast, she will waive all the pre-qualification fees. NMLS 42056. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe. We have new interviews every single Tuesday. And if you subscribe, you'll get notified as soon as they come out. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.